This is Edmund Tran here, standing in for writer Ginny to give you her review of Monster Hunter World. For the full thing, be sure to check out the text version on GameSpot.com. For seasoned players, the gameplay loop in Monster Hunter World is immediately recognizable. Your job is a cycle that involves crafting weapons, bulking up, killing monsters, and looting them for materials. However, a well-crafted narrative has not traditionally been part of that gameplay loop, and that may have been a detriment for those looking for a foothold into the franchise in the past. Luckily for them, the first major point of difference here from previous mainline titles is the way that plot and gameplay are grafted together. While you spend a lot of your time chasing an elder dragon that wouldn't look out of place in the movie Pacific Rim, Monster Hunter World's choice to integrate guild and village quests into one coherent story cuts out any confusion or ambiguity that new players may feel when it comes to figuring out how to progress your journey. The fact that everything is tuned for a solo experience is a plus. It's entirely possible to jump through 60 plus hours of quests without ever interacting with another player online. On top of the story, which revolves around the mystery of why the aforementioned Elder Dragon has appeared in the game's new region, there have been some quality of life changes that ease your transition into the world of monster hunting. Instead of front-loading a lot of text-based tutorials as in previous titles, you now have a handler that doles out helpful information to you as you progress through zones of increasing complexity.
The supplies you need to capture a monster are on site. Make absolutely sure you have tranq bombs. That one's a must.
It can feel a little bit like having an annoying younger sibling, but her vocal cues and vast knowledge about monster types are helpful when encountering new enemies for the first time. Her help stops when you start cutting your teeth on high-rank monsters, but hearing about new skills and immediately putting them into practice in the field is an excellent way to learn about the game from the ground up. Now, Monster Hunter World was always promised as an open-world experience. To some extent, it delivers on that. Fantastically large maps of a scale that we haven't seen before, both vertically and horizontally, no discernible game-pausing loading screens between zones and hunting areas, and a wealth of beautifully rendered environments to slaughter colossal monsters in. Part of the ability to slaughter said monsters is the smart use of all the tools in your hunting arsenal, with the most important being your weapon of choice. The hunter arts from Monster Hunter Generations have been removed, and the game's focus is solely on your ability to dish out ridiculous amounts of damage using your respective weapons combo. Light weapons are still the most mobile, while the technical weapons are still the most difficult to understand and master. But there are ample opportunities to get experience with whatever blade, bow, or lance you've decided on. You'll also make use of environmental hazards, traps, barrel bombs, and dung in order to chase down your quarry. There are many different ways to get a leg up on monsters, which make encounters more accessible to different playstyles. Aerial mounting and elemental effects are still all the rage, with weapons boasting essential new perks that have evolved alongside the enemies that you forged them from. But the game will reward you no matter what strategies you take. Multiplayer integration is, for the most part, seamless. As mentioned before, there's no distinction between village and guild quests anymore, so missions can be done alone or with a friend, and you'll both only have to do it once to complete it. You can start a quest alone in an online session and wait for some mates to pop in to assist. Alternatively, you can seek out an online session for people of a certain hunter rank and just go along for the ride if they need a hand with anything. The difficulty will scale depending on the amount of people, and the only qualifier is that some story-focused missions require the leader to either watch a cutscene or discover a monster before others can join. Getting together with your mates does take a few extra steps compared to loading into a session with a stranger. If you know you've got a friend online, you'll have to join in on their fun via the friends list on your console's dashboard. While you can drop in and out of public sessions with strangers easily, getting people to specifically join your online session requires them to enter a 12-digit session ID. In a game that's all about momentum and sprinting off into the horizon at the next challenge, getting your posse together is manageable but slightly tedious. That being said, spending a few minutes to set up a multiplayer session doesn't necessarily make or break the game. There's also the ability to be in the same online session as someone else without actually having to do the quests that they're doing, which is useful for those who might want to keep an eye on a friend who's new to the franchise. Players who are also struggling solo can send out an SOS flare that lets others put together a little rescue party to save the day. Now, while it may seem that quite a bit has changed, there's also a hell of a lot in Monster Hunter World that has stayed the same. Whether it's the appearance of familiar monsters or the tried and true weapons, the roots of the Monster Hunter franchise are strong with its latest release. Apart from the overall sprucing up of the graphics and the cutscenes with full voiceovers, the standout improvements really come from the simplification of existing systems in a way that welcomes newcomers without alienating existing fans. A lack of loading screens makes exploration a pleasure, and tracking new and improved monsters through areas as they rank up means that you've got plenty to conquer once the story quests are complete. There may not be any new weapons, and there may be a Hunter Arts-sized hole left in the hearts of players who spent hours getting good at the various styles. However, the removal of these old mechanics feels less like a funeral and more like a necessary streamlining. Ever since the title was first announced last year, it was clear that Capcom was gunning for something grander than Monster Hunter Generations. It has succeeded, and this is likely the biggest and best that the franchise has ever been. It's not just the comparative depth of the narrative, it also boasts almost seamless integration between combat systems that were previously incomprehensible for amateurs. The Monster Hunter formula has definitely honed its claws, and all the aforementioned factors play their part in making Monster Hunter World a meaningful evolution for the series at large.